Welcome back to the English Pod. I'm Jennifer, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. Our topic is talking about travel and vacations. Travel is such a vibrant subject that can lead to exciting conversations, and it's a fantastic way to practice English.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Traveling allows us to connect with people and share experiences. Whether you've just returned from a vacation or are dreaming about your next adventure, travel stories can break the ice and spark interest in conversations.
Plus, by listening to our podcast, you're not just improving your listening skills. You're also learning new vocabulary and phrases related to travel. So let's jump right in and explore how to make small talk about travel.
One great way to start a travel conversation is by asking someone about their recent trips. You can casually ask, "Have you traveled anywhere interesting lately?" This question opens the door for them to share their experiences.
That's a perfect starter. When they respond, you can dive deeper with follow-up questions like, "What was the highlight of your trip?" Or "Did you visit any must-see places?" This shows that you are genuinely interested in their experiences.
Exactly. And if they mention a specific destination, you can say something like, "Oh, I've always wanted to go there. What was your favorite part about it?" This not only keeps the conversation going, but also encourages them to share more details.
Yes, it's also fun to ask about any unique experiences they had while traveling. You could inquire, "Did you try any local foods?" Or was there something surprising that happened during your trip? These questions can lead to interesting stories and shared laughs.
And remember, listening carefully to their answers can provide you with opportunities to share your own travel stories. For example, if they mention a landmark, you could say, "That's amazing. I visited that place too, and it was breathtaking."
Exactly. Finding common ground makes conversations more enjoyable and relatable. It creates a bond between you and your conversation partner. Now, let's shift gears and talk about sharing your own travel experiences. After someone tells you about their recent trip, it's nice to reciprocate with your own stories. You might say, "I recently visited Italy, and it was an incredible experience."
That's the spirit. When sharing your experiences, try to include interesting details that paint a vivid picture. Instead of simply saying, "I went to Rome," you could elaborate. "I visited the Colosseum, and the architecture was mind-blowing. It was like stepping back in time."
Absolutely, and don't forget to mention who you traveled with and any special moments you had. For example, I traveled with my family, and we spent an entire day exploring the Vatican. The art was absolutely stunning, and we even got to see the Sistine Chapel.
Right, adding personal touches makes your story more engaging. If you faced any challenges during your trip, sharing those can be relatable. For instance, we got lost in Venice, but it turned out to be a blessing because we discovered some hidden gems.
That's a great example. Humor and mishaps can really add to the storytelling experience. You can also discuss any lessons you learned while traveling. Maybe you tried a new activity, like snorkeling, and realized you loved it.
And these personal anecdotes can lead to deeper conversations about interests and preferences. Sharing what you loved or what surprised you about a place can help build connections.
Now, let's discuss dream destinations. Asking someone where they would love to travel is a fantastic way to learn about their interests. You could say, "If you could travel anywhere, where would it be?"
That's an excellent question. People often have passionate responses when discussing their dream vacations. You might hear, "I've always wanted to go to Bali for its beautiful beaches and lush landscapes."
Exactly, and their reasons can lead to fascinating discussions. You could ask, "What about Bali appeals to you the most?" This opens the door for them to share their dreams and aspirations.
And it's interesting to share your own dream destinations too. For instance, you might say, "I dream of going to Japan to experience its rich culture and delicious food." This can spark a back and forth exchange about various cultures and traditions.
Plus, discussing dream destinations can reveal shared interests. If you both want to visit the same place, you can dive into why you're interested in it, which can be a great bonding experience.
Absolutely. And if you've been to a place they mention, sharing your experiences can enrich the conversation. You could say, I visited Japan last year and it was incredible. The food was a highlight for me. I especially loved sushi.
Let's now explore how to connect over shared travel experiences. When you find common ground, it strengthens your connection. If someone mentions they visited a destination you love, you can say, I went there too. What did you think of it?
That's a fantastic way to build rapport. Sharing opinions about a location can lead to enriching discussions. You could compare experiences, like favorite activities or sites, which can add depth to the conversation.
Exactly, and don't be shy about sharing your tips or recommendations. If they ask for suggestions about places to visit, you can say, if you go to that city, make sure to check out the local markets. They're fantastic for experiencing the culture.
And these conversations can also inspire new travel plans. If both of you have traveled to similar places, it might lead to ideas about future trips together. You could suggest, let's plan a trip to that destination.
Plus, talking about travel can help you discover similar interests, like adventure activities or cultural experiences. If you both enjoy hiking, you can discuss beautiful trails and nature experiences from your travels.
To wrap up our conversation about travel and vacations, remember that asking questions, sharing stories, and connecting over experiences can turn casual small talk into meaningful exchanges.
Definitely, engaging in travel conversations not only enhances your English skills, but also allows you to learn about different cultures and connect with others on a personal level.
And remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice your English. The more you engage, the more comfortable you will become in expressing yourself.
Exactly, so keep those travel stories in mind. And let's dive deeper into this exciting topic in our next segments. Stay tuned. One of the easiest ways to keep the conversation going is by asking about future travel plans. You could ask someone, do you have any trips planned for the near future? It's a natural way to show interest in their upcoming experiences.
That's a great suggestion, Jennifer. When someone shares their future travel plans, it gives them an opportunity to talk about something exciting they're looking forward to. They might say, yes, I'm planning a trip to New York next month. And you can follow up with, oh, that sounds amazing. Have you been to New York before, or will this be your first time?
Exactly. And if they haven't been before, you can offer suggestions or tips if you've visited the destination. Maybe you can say you have to check out Central Park. It's such a beautiful place to relax and take in the sights.
Right, and if they've been there before, you can ask, what are you most excited about revisiting? It shows that you're genuinely curious about their plans. Also, talking about future trips creates excitement and anticipation, making the conversation feel more engaging.
And don't forget to share your own future travel plans too. If you have an upcoming trip, you can say, I'm also planning to go to the mountains this summer. I love hiking, and I'm really looking forward to the fresh air and nature.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Sharing your plans not only keeps the conversation balanced, but also gives the other person ideas for their own future travels. And it's always fun to hear what destinations others are excited about visiting.
Absolutely. Whether it's a dream vacation or just a weekend getaway, discussing future travel plans is a fantastic way to connect and build rapport.
Another excellent topic to bring up in small talk is asking about someone's favorite travel destinations. A simple question like, what's the best place you've ever traveled to? Can lead to an interesting and passionate conversation.
Yes, I love that question. It usually brings out a lot of enthusiasm because people enjoy talking about places they loved visiting. Someone might say, oh, the best place I've ever been to is Paris. The food, the culture, the architecture, it was all amazing.
Exactly. And from there, You can ask follow-up questions like, what was your favorite part of Paris? Or did you visit any of the famous landmarks like the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre? This encourages them to share more detailed stories about their trip.
And if you've been to the same place, you can add to the conversation by sharing your own experiences. For example, I visited Paris too. The pastries were incredible, weren't they? I could have eaten croissants all day.
Definitely, it makes the conversation feel more dynamic when both people can contribute personal experiences. But even if you haven't been to their favorite destination, you can still ask more questions. I've never been to Paris, but it's on my list. What do you recommend for a first-time visitor?
That's a great way to keep the conversation going. And people love giving travel advice. They might recommend certain neighborhoods to explore, foods to try, or activities to do.
And who knows, by the end of the conversation, you might feel inspired to book your own trip to that destination. It's a great way to discover new places and travel ideas.
Travel isn't just about visiting new places. It's also about experiencing different cultures. You can ask someone, what was the most interesting cultural experience you had while traveling? This can lead to fascinating stories.
Absolutely. Cultural experiences often make travel more memorable. For example, someone might say, when I visited Japan, I got to experience a traditional tea ceremony, and it was so beautiful and peaceful.
That sounds amazing. And from there, you can ask follow-up questions like, what was the ceremony like? Or did you try any traditional foods while you were there? These kinds of questions encourage deeper conversations about their experiences.
Yes, and sharing your own cultural experiences can also enrich the conversation. Maybe you experienced a local festival or celebration during your travels. You could say, I was in Mexico during Dia de los Muertos, and the vibrant colors and traditions were so beautiful to witness.
That's a fantastic example. Sharing cultural experiences also helps broaden your perspective on the world. And even if you haven't had many opportunities to travel, asking about other people's cultural experiences can help you learn and explore through their stories.
Exactly. Learning about different cultures through travel stories can also make you more aware and open to trying new things when you do travel in the future.
And it's a great reminder that travel is more than just sightseeing. It's about understanding and connecting with different ways of life.
While travel is often exciting and fun, it's also common to face some challenges along the way. Asking someone about their travel challenges can lead to funny or insightful conversations. You could ask, did you have any travel challenges during your trip?
Yes, and those stories can be quite entertaining. Maybe someone had a delayed flight or got lost in a foreign city. They might say, yes, my luggage was lost when I landed in Thailand, and I had to spend the first 2 days without any of my clothes. It's something that's frustrating at the time, but can be funny to look back on.
That's so true, and you can sympathize with them by saying, oh no, that must have been tough. How did you manage? This shows that you're listening and engaged in their story.
And of course, it's also fun to share your own travel challenges. Maybe you had a similar experience. You could say, that reminds me of the time I missed my connecting flight in Germany and had to sleep at the airport overnight. These kinds of stories often lead to shared laughter.
Yes, travel mishaps can become great stories once the stress of the moment has passed. They also make the conversation more relatable, as almost everyone has faced some kind of challenge while traveling.
Exactly, and discussing travel challenges can also offer tips for future trips. Maybe someone learned a lesson from their experience that they can share with you. It's a way to exchange useful information.
Plus, it can make you more prepared for your next trip. For example, after hearing someone's story about lost luggage, you might think to pack a few essentials in your carry-on bag next time.
Definitely, travel challenges are all part of the adventure, and sharing them can make conversations more engaging and memorable. Another great way to make your travel small talk stand out is by asking about lesser-known destinations. You can ask something like, Have you ever traveled to a place that isn't as popular but really surprised you? It's a wonderful way to introduce places that aren't on everyone's radar.
That's a fantastic question. People often get excited to share their hidden gems. Someone might say, yes, I visited this small town in Portugal called Bidos. It's not as well known as Lisbon, but it had this charming medieval atmosphere, and the food was incredible. You can respond with, wow, I've never heard of it. What made it so special?
Right, it's a refreshing change from the usual discussions about popular destinations like Paris or Rome. When someone shares their experience of a lesser-known spot, it feels more personal and unique. You could ask, what did you enjoy most about the local culture or the scenery? This allows them to dive deeper into the things that made their trip special.
Exactly. It's always interesting to hear about places that aren't crowded with tourists, and it gives you ideas for future trips. Even if you haven't been to a hidden gem, you can still be curious. You could say something like, that sounds like a perfect getaway. Would you recommend it for a quiet vacation? Or is there a lot to do?
And sometimes, these lesser-known destinations are perfect for specific types of travel experiences. Maybe they're great for hiking, cultural immersion, or just relaxing. You can also share your own experiences if you've been to a less popular destination. For example, I once visited a small village in the Swiss Alps. It wasn't touristy at all, but the views were breathtaking, and it was the perfect escape from city life.
That's a great point. These kinds of conversations can inspire others to think beyond the typical tourist spots and consider more unique travel experiences. Plus, it feels like you're exchanging secret travel tips, which can make the conversation feel more special.
Absolutely, and it creates a bond because it shows that you're both passionate about discovering new places. Talking about lesser-known destinations can be a fantastic way to connect over a shared sense of adventure.
A classic conversation starter when it comes to travel is asking about someone's dream destination. You could ask, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you travel to? This often leads to exciting and imaginative answers.
Yes, I love that question. It really gets people thinking about their ultimate travel goals. Someone might say, my dream is to go on a safari in Africa and see all the wildlife up close. And from there, you can ask, what animals are you most excited to see? It shows that you're interested in their dream trip.
Exactly. Dream destinations are often places that people have been thinking about for a long time, so they'll have a lot to say. You could also ask, what's the one thing you'd want to do most on that trip? This lets them share more specific details about what excites them the most.
And if you share a similar dream destination, you can bond over that. You could say, I've always wanted to go to Africa too. The idea of seeing lions and elephants in the wild sounds incredible. It's a way to connect over shared aspirations.
Absolutely. Even if your dream destinations are different, you can still express curiosity. For example, if someone's dream trip is to visit Antarctica, you might say, wow, that's so unique. What draws you to such a remote place? It's a chance to learn about what inspires people to choose their dream destinations.
And of course, sharing your own dream destination keeps the conversation flowing. You could say, my dream is to visit the Maldives and stay in one of those overwater bungalows. It looks so peaceful and beautiful. Dream destinations often reflect our personalities and preferences, so they can lead to meaningful conversations.
That's a great point. People's dream destinations can reveal a lot about what they value in travel, whether it's adventure, relaxation, culture, or nature. Plus, talking about dream vacations brings a lot of positive energy to the conversation.
Exactly. It's a way to dream together and get inspired. And who knows, maybe you'll even give each other new ideas for future trips. One topic that often comes up in travel small talk is solo travel. You can ask someone, have you ever traveled alone? It's a great way to start a conversation about the different experiences that come with solo travel.
That's a fantastic topic, Jennifer. Solo travel is becoming more popular, and people often have strong opinions about it. Someone might say, yes, I traveled alone to Thailand, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. You could then ask, what did you enjoy most about traveling solo?
Exactly. Solo travelers often appreciate the freedom and independence of being able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. They might say, I loved having the freedom to explore at my own pace and make spontaneous decisions. And you could follow up with, that sounds amazing. Did you meet any interesting people along the way?
That's a great way to keep the conversation going. Solo travel often leads to meeting new people, and those experiences can be really rewarding. You could also ask, did you feel safe traveling alone? What advice would you give to someone considering solo travel?
Yes, safety is always a concern when traveling alone, so it's a relevant topic to discuss. You can also share your own thoughts on solo travel. Maybe you've never done it but are curious about it. You could say, I've always thought about traveling alone, but I'm not sure where to start. Do you have any tips?
Exactly. Even if you haven't traveled solo, expressing curiosity can lead to valuable insights. And for those who have traveled alone, they often love sharing their experiences and advice. It's also a great way to learn about how solo travel can boost confidence and self-reliance.
And if you have traveled alone, sharing your own story can add depth to the conversation. Maybe you could say, I traveled solo to Spain, and it was such a liberating experience. I learned so much about myself and how to navigate new situations.
That's a great example. Solo travel stories are often full of personal growth and self-discovery, making them perfect for deeper conversations. Plus, they can inspire others to consider solo travel for themselves.
Absolutely. It's an empowering topic that can lead to fascinating discussions and even inspire others to step out of their comfort zones. Let's shift the conversation a bit to group travel. A great way to engage someone in small talk is by asking, do you prefer to travel alone or with a group? This question opens the door to discussing different travel styles and the joys of traveling with friends or family.
That's a fun way to get things going. People usually have strong preferences when it comes to travel. Some may say, I love traveling with friends because it makes the trip more fun and less stressful. From there, you could ask, what's the best trip you've taken with a group of friends?
Exactly. People love sharing stories about group trips. They might talk about a memorable road trip or a big family vacation. A great follow-up question could be, what's your favorite thing about traveling with friends? It shows interest in their experiences and gives them a chance to reflect on the social aspect of travel.
And for people who love group travel, there are usually great stories about shared adventures and the camaraderie that comes with it. You could also ask, do you think traveling with a group makes the trip more enjoyable, or does it depend on the group? This adds some depth to the conversation by exploring the dynamics of group travel.
That's true. Group travel can be amazing if everyone's on the same page, but it can also be tricky to balance different personalities. People might share their experiences of coordinating trips with different friends, and you can add to the conversation by saying, it sounds like planning a trip with a group can be a bit challenging. How do you usually make sure everyone's happy?
Exactly. That's a great way to keep the conversation flowing and to explore different aspects of group travel. And of course, you can share your own experiences as well. You could say something like, I went on a trip with a group of friends to Greece, and while it was fun, it took some effort to make sure everyone got to do what they wanted.
Yes, group trips can involve some compromises, but they also come with special memories that are worth sharing. You could ask, what's your favorite group trip memory? People love reminiscing about the fun, the laughter, and even the unexpected moments that made the trip unforgettable.
Exactly. Jennifer, sharing group travel stories can bring out funny or heartwarming memories, and it helps create a connection over shared experiences. Group travel is about creating bonds and building memories together, which makes it a great topic for small talk. Not all travel small talk has to be about distant destinations. You can also bring up the idea of staycations, which have become more popular in recent years. You might ask someone, "Have you ever tried a staycation?" It's a fun way to talk about enjoying local spots without leaving your city.
That's a great idea, Thomas. Staycations are a wonderful option for people who don't have the time or budget to travel far. Someone might respond with, "Yes, I spent a weekend at a local resort, and it felt like a real vacation without the stress of traveling." You could follow up with, "That sounds so relaxing." What did you do during your staycation?
Exactly. People often find that staycations allow them to unwind without the hassle of airports or long drives. They might mention things like visiting a nearby spa, exploring local parks, or just spending time relaxing at home. You could also ask, "What's your favorite local spot that feels like an escape?"
Staycations also offer the chance to rediscover your own city or region. Someone might say, "I spent my staycation exploring museums and restaurants I'd never been to before." A great response to that could be, "That's such a great idea." What's a hidden gem in your area that you'd recommend?
Exactly. Staycations are a perfect opportunity to enjoy things we often overlook in our own backyard. And even if someone hasn't done a staycation, you can still chat about the concept. You could ask, if you were to plan a staycation, what would your ideal day look like? It's a creative way to keep the conversation light and fun.
That's a good approach, Thomas. Staycations often lead to more relaxed conversations since they're about finding joy in the simple things. Sharing your own ideas can keep the conversation flowing. For example, if I had a staycation, I'd probably spend a day hiking and then treat myself to a nice dinner at a local restaurant. It keeps things personal and relatable.
And for people who are more homebodies, staycations are an appealing topic. You could say something like, "Sometimes just staying in and having a movie marathon at home feels like the perfect vacation." It's a fun and lighthearted way to connect over the idea that vacations don't always have to involve travel.
Exactly. Staycations remind us that relaxation and adventure can be found anywhere, even in our own homes or neighborhoods. They can be just as enjoyable as faraway trips and offer a great topic for friendly, relatable conversation. Another interesting topic that often comes up in workplace conversations is business travel. You could ask a colleague, "Do you travel much for work?" This is especially relevant for professionals, and it can lead to discussions about the different cities or countries they've visited for business.
That's a great way to start. People who travel for work often have a lot of stories about the places they've been, even if it's just for short trips. Someone might say, "Yes, I go to New York for meetings every few months." You can then ask, "What's your favorite thing to do in New York when you have free time?"
Exactly. Even though business trips are often busy, people usually try to find a little time for themselves to explore. They might share, "I love grabbing a bagel and walking through Central Park before heading to meetings." From there, you can say, "That sounds like a nice way to start your day." Do you often get the chance to explore when you travel for work?
Right. It's interesting to hear about how people balance work and leisure during business trips. Some might say, "Not always, but I try to make the most of it when I can." You could also ask, "Do you prefer business trips, or would you rather stay in the office?" It adds another layer to the conversation by talking about the pros and cons of business travel.
That's a good question. Some people love business travel for the change of scenery, while others prefer the routine of staying in one place. And if you travel for work, you can share your own experiences too. You might say, "I enjoy business trips because I get to see new places, but I also miss the comfort of home sometimes."
Yes, and for those who don't travel for work, it can be a fun topic to explore. You could ask, if you could choose any city to travel to for business, where would it be? This adds a creative twist to the conversation and lets people imagine their ideal business trip.
And sometimes business travel leads to funny or unexpected stories. Someone might share a time they got lost in a foreign city or had an interesting interaction with a colleague while traveling. These stories add humor to the conversation and make it more enjoyable.
Exactly, Jennifer. Business travel can be full of surprises, and sharing those experiences helps build connections in the workplace. It's also a way to bond over common experiences, especially in a professional setting. Shifting back to personal travel, a great conversation starter is asking about dream destinations. You could ask, if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go? It's a light, fun question that gets people talking about places they're excited to visit.
That's a wonderful idea. Everyone has a dream destination they'd love to explore. Some people might say, I've always wanted to visit Japan during cherry blossom season. That opens the door for more questions like, what interests you the most about Japan? This helps the person dive deeper into their reasons and shows your genuine interest.
Exactly. Dream destinations are a great way to get people excited. For example, if they mention Japan, you could follow up with, have you ever tried learning the language, or do you have a favorite Japanese dish? It gives the conversation more depth while staying focused on the fun of travel.
That's a great point. If someone says, I'd love to explore Italy, you can ask, what's the first thing you do when you get there? This helps the conversation flow and keeps the excitement alive. People often have specific things in mind like visiting the Colosseum or tasting authentic Italian pasta.
Right, and you can even share your own dream destination to keep the conversation balanced. You might say, I've always wanted to visit New Zealand for its stunning landscapes and outdoor adventures. I'd love to go hiking there. By sharing your own travel aspirations, you make the conversation more personal and engaging.
Yes, it also allows for comparisons or even travel recommendations. You could say, I've never been to New Zealand, but I've heard amazing things about the scenery. Do you know anyone who's been there before? This keeps the dialogue going and may even lead to some shared connections or experiences.
And if you find common ground, maybe you both dream of visiting the same place. That's an excellent way to bond. You can say something like, that's so interesting. I've always wanted to go there, too. Maybe one day we'll both get the chance. It makes the conversation more dynamic and relatable.
Absolutely. Talking about dream destinations can bring out a lot of enthusiasm and inspiration. It's a great topic for light conversation that also feels meaningful because it taps into personal dreams and desires. Another interesting small talk topic is travel style. You could ask, do you prefer relaxing vacations or more adventurous trips? This simple question can lead to a lively discussion about what people look for in their vacations.
That's a great one. People often have strong preferences when it comes to vacation style. Someone might say, I love relaxing on the beach with a good book. You can follow up with, that sounds amazing. What's your ideal beach destination? It keeps the conversation going while staying on the topic of relaxation.
And on the other hand, you might meet someone who prefers adventure. They could say, I'm all about hiking and exploring new places. A good response would be, what's the most exciting place you've ever hiked? It gives them the opportunity to share their experiences, and you can ask more about their adventures.
Yes, adventure travelers often have fascinating stories to tell. They might mention an epic hike or a thrilling experience like skydiving or scuba diving. You can then ask, would you say you're an adrenaline junkie, or do you just like trying new things? This adds a layer of personality to the conversation, giving them a chance to talk about their adventurous side.
It's also fun to compare different travel preferences. If someone says, I love adventure, and you're more into relaxation, you can say, that's cool. I'm more of a beach person myself, but I admire people who seek out adventure. This keeps the conversation lighthearted while acknowledging the difference in preferences.
Exactly, Jennifer. It shows that you're open to hearing about different experiences, even if they're not your personal preference. You can even ask, have you ever tried a more relaxing vacation? Or is it always about adventure for you? It adds another dimension to the conversation and keeps things interesting.
Yes, that's a good way to explore their perspective. And you can also share your own experiences. If you've had both types of vacations, you could say, I've done both relaxing beach trips and adventurous hikes, and I have to say, both have their own charm. It makes the conversation more engaging and relatable.
Exactly. By sharing your own experiences and preferences, you make the conversation feel more like a two-way exchange rather than just asking questions. It builds rapport and keeps the dialogue going smoothly. Let's dive into something a bit more insightful: cultural differences during travel. You could ask, have you ever traveled somewhere that felt really different from what you're used to? This opens up a fascinating discussion about the challenges and rewards of experiencing new cultures.
That's a great question, Thomas. Traveling to different cultures can be eye-opening, and people often have memorable experiences. Someone might say, when I visited Japan, I had to get used to the quietness in public spaces. You can follow up with, that sounds interesting. How did you adapt to the cultural differences?
Yes, cultural differences can make travel more exciting, but also more challenging. Someone might share a story about a language barrier or a different way of doing things, like tipping in restaurants. You could ask, did you find it easy to adjust, or did it take some time to get used to it? This keeps the conversation thoughtful while staying on the travel theme.
That's true. Cultural differences can lead to funny or surprising moments, which are great for small talk. You might hear someone say, I was shocked when I learned that in some countries, you're expected to barter for goods. A good follow-up would be, did you try bartering, or was it too intimidating?
Right, and if you've experienced cultural differences yourself, it's fun to share those stories too. You could say, I remember being really surprised by how early everything closes in Europe compared to back home. It definitely took some getting used to. It's a nice way to relate and keep the conversation balanced.
Yes, sharing your own experiences can help build a stronger connection. You might also ask, is there a culture you've experienced that you'd love to immerse yourself in more deeply? This keeps the conversation focused on curiosity and learning, which often leads to more meaningful exchanges.
And if they mention a specific culture they want to learn more about, you can ask, what about that culture interests you the most? This shows you're listening and genuinely interested in their experiences and perspectives.
Exactly. Talking about cultural differences adds depth to travel small talk. It's not just about the destinations, but also about the unique experiences people have when they step out of their comfort zone. Let's talk about another fun aspect of travel: special occasions. You could ask, have you ever traveled for a special occasion like a wedding or a big birthday celebration? It's a great way to get people talking about meaningful trips.
That's a fantastic idea. Traveling for special occasions often leads to unforgettable experiences. Someone might say, I went to my cousin's wedding in Mexico last year, and it was amazing. You could follow up with, that sounds incredible. Did you have time to explore Mexico outside of the wedding festivities?
Yes, special occasion travel usually involves a mix of celebration and sightseeing. If they did have time to explore, you can ask, what was your favorite part of the trip? It keeps the conversation positive and allows them to share the highlights of their experience.
And even if they didn't have much time for sightseeing, there's still plenty to talk about. You could ask, how was the wedding? Was it different from what you're used to? It adds a cultural element to the conversation, especially if the wedding took place in a different country or was influenced by different traditions.
Exactly. Weddings and special events in other countries can be so unique. People love sharing stories about how different or exciting the event was. You can add to the conversation by saying, I've always wanted to attend a destination wedding. Was it as magical as it sounds?
That's a great way to keep the conversation light and engaging. Special occasions often bring out happy memories, and sharing those experiences helps create a connection. You could also ask, have you ever planned a trip around a big event, like a concert or festival? This takes the conversation in a slightly different direction, but still keeps it travel-related.
Yes, events like concerts and festivals are a huge part of travel for some people. Someone might say, I went to a music festival in Europe last summer, and it was incredible. A good follow-up question could be, what was the festival like? Was it different from the ones back home?
And if you've traveled for a special event yourself, it's always good to share your own story. You could say, I once traveled to a friend's wedding in another state, and it turned into a mini vacation. We explored the city and had a great time. This makes the conversation more balanced and personal.
Exactly, traveling for special occasions adds a layer of excitement to the experience, and people love sharing those memories. It's a perfect small talk topic that can lead to lots of interesting stories.
Another fantastic topic when discussing travel is food. You can ask, do you enjoy trying local food when you travel? Food is such a big part of any culture, and it's often a highlight of the trip for many people.
Absolutely, food can be an excellent way to connect with people and their experiences. Someone might say, I love trying new dishes when I'm traveling. When I was in Thailand, I couldn't get enough of the street food. You can follow up with, that sounds amazing. What was your favorite dish in Thailand? This lets them dive into their culinary experiences and share something they were really passionate about.
Exactly, and people tend to light up when they talk about food, especially if they had a memorable experience. If they mention something they really loved, like Thai street food, you could ask, were you nervous about trying something new, or are you an adventurous eater? It opens the door for them to share more about their personality and travel style.
That's a great follow-up. You can also share your own food experiences. For example, when I traveled to Italy, I tried homemade pasta for the first time, and it was life-changing. Sharing your own food adventures makes the conversation more dynamic and personal.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Another great way to keep the conversation going is by asking about their approach to trying new foods. For example, you could ask, do you always try to find local restaurants, or do you prefer to stick with familiar foods when you're traveling? It shows curiosity about how they experience travel and gives them an opportunity to talk about their preferences.
That's a fantastic question, especially since some people love stepping out of their comfort zone when it comes to food, while others might be a little more cautious. If someone says, I always try the local cuisine, but I'm careful with certain foods, you can ask, what's the most adventurous food you've tried while traveling? It adds an exciting twist to the conversation.
Yes, and if you've tried something unusual yourself, you can jump in and share that experience too. You might say, I tried escargot in France, and it was surprisingly good. That way, you're contributing to the conversation and making it feel more interactive.
Exactly. And even if you haven't tried anything too adventurous, you could mention something like, I haven't tried anything too exotic, but I'd love to someday. What's a dish you think I should try on my next trip? This keeps the conversation going and shows that you're open to new experiences.
That's a great way to keep the focus on the other person's experience while still showing your own interest. Food is such an integral part of travel that talking about it almost always leads to great conversation.
It really does. Food has a way of connecting people across cultures, and sharing those experiences is a fantastic way to bond over travel. It's a topic that's rich with opportunities for both light and deeper conversations. Another interesting topic is long-term travel or living abroad. You could ask, have you ever lived in another country, or would you consider it? It's a deeper question that can lead to fascinating stories about people's experiences living in different cultures.
That's a fantastic question, Jennifer. Living abroad can be a life-changing experience, and many people have interesting stories about adjusting to a new culture. Someone might say, I lived in Spain for a year while studying abroad. You can follow up with, what was the most challenging part of adjusting to life in Spain? This adds depth to the conversation while still keeping it travel-focused.
Yes, living abroad often means learning how to navigate a new culture, language, and even lifestyle. If someone shares a challenging experience, you could ask, how did you overcome that challenge? Do you feel like the experience changed you? These kinds of questions allow the other person to reflect on their experiences and share insights that go beyond just the surface level.
Exactly. And even if someone hasn't lived abroad, they might have thought about it. You could ask, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? This question sparks the imagination and can lead to a fun discussion about dream destinations and the kind of lifestyle someone would want in a new country.
That's a good point. It's a great way to keep the conversation light while still exploring a deeper topic. And if someone mentions a place they'd love to live, you could ask, what do you think would be the best part about living there? This allows them to share their vision of what life in that country would be like.
Yes, and if you've lived abroad yourself, it's always good to share your own experiences. You could say something like, I lived in the UK for a few years, and the biggest adjustment for me was getting used to the weather. It adds a personal touch to the conversation while keeping things relatable.
Exactly, Thomas. It also gives the conversation a more balanced feel. And even if someone hasn't lived abroad, they might have traveled for an extended period. You could ask, have you ever taken a long trip where you felt like you were really immersed in the local culture? This keeps the conversation focused on travel while offering the chance to dive deeper into their experiences.
That's a great approach. Long-term travel or living abroad opens the door to discussing personal growth, new perspectives, and cultural challenges. It's a topic that can lead to meaningful conversations that go beyond just the surface level of typical small talk.
Yes, talking about long-term travel or living abroad allows people to share stories that have had a significant impact on their lives. It's a wonderful way to build a connection through shared or aspirational experiences.
A really practical and engaging small talk topic is sharing travel tips. You can ask, what's the best travel tip you've ever received? This opens the door for some great advice that you can use on your future trips.
That's a great one. People love sharing their travel wisdom. Someone might say, always pack light and keep a spare set of clothes in your carry-on. You could follow up with, that's smart. Have you ever had a situation where that tip really saved you? This invites them to share a personal story, which makes the conversation more engaging.
Exactly. And people often have those kinds of stories about a time when their travel plans went off track and their tip came in handy. Another good follow-up could be, do you have any other must-know travel hacks for staying organized on the road? It keeps the conversation practical and interesting.
That's a good point. People also love to share their favorite travel apps or gear. You could ask, what's one thing you never travel without? This question allows them to talk about a product or tool they swear by, and you might even get some useful recommendations.
Yes, and sharing your own tips is always a great way to contribute to the conversation. For example, I always bring a portable charger and an extra water bottle with me. They've saved me on so many trips. By sharing your own advice, you keep the conversation balanced and relatable.
Absolutely. And if they give a unique tip you've never heard before, you can say, that's a great idea. I've never thought of that. I'll definitely keep it in mind for my next trip. This shows that you're engaged and open to learning from their experiences.
Exactly, Jennifer. Travel tips are such a practical and engaging topic because they're useful and almost everyone has some advice to offer. It's a topic that can easily transition into sharing personal stories, which makes for great small talk.
And travel tips can also lead to recommendations. If someone mentions a favorite destination or tip for a particular place, you could ask, do you have any recommendations for must-see spots in that area? This keeps the conversation going and allows them to share their knowledge.
That's a great follow-up, especially if they've visited a place you're interested in. You can say, I'm planning a trip there soon. Any must-do activities you'd recommend? It keeps the conversation relevant and allows you to get useful insights while building a connection.
Another topic that's always useful is budget travel. You could ask, do you have any tips for traveling on a budget? This question is super practical and can lead to some great money-saving advice.
That's a great question, Jennifer. People love sharing their budget travel hacks. Someone might say, I always look for last-minute deals on flights and accommodations. You could follow up with, that's smart. Have you ever found an incredible deal that made a trip possible? This keeps the conversation focused on practical advice while also inviting them to share a personal experience.
Yes, budget travel tips are often based on experience, so people usually have interesting stories to share. Another good follow-up could be, what's the best budget-friendly destination you've been to? It keeps the conversation light and opens up the opportunity to talk about great places that are affordable to visit.
Exactly, and it also gives you the chance to share your own experiences. For example, I once found a last-minute flight to Mexico for half the price. It was one of the best deals I've ever gotten. By sharing your own story, you make the conversation feel more balanced and personal.
That's a great point, Thomas. And budget travel often leads to some creative solutions, like staying in hostels or using public transportation. You could ask, what's your go-to strategy for saving money on accommodations? This keeps the conversation practical and shows you're interested in learning from their experiences.
Yes, and you can always share your own tips, like, I love using budget airlines for quick trips. They've saved me a ton of money over the years. Sharing your own advice keeps the conversation flowing and adds your personal touch to the discussion.
Exactly. And if someone gives a tip you hadn't considered, you can say, that's a great idea. I'll definitely try that next time. It shows that you're engaged in the conversation and appreciate their input.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Budget travel is such a practical topic, and it's always interesting to hear how people manage to travel without breaking the bank. Plus, sharing these tips can lead to other useful conversations about travel planning and smart strategies for making the most of a trip.
Yes, it's a fantastic way to connect over practical experiences while still keeping the conversation light and enjoyable.
One of my favorite travel small talk topics is asking about someone's favorite travel memory. You can say something like, what's one trip that you'll never forget? This question invites the other person to reflect on a special experience and share a meaningful story.
That's a great way to end a conversation on a high note. People usually love talking about their favorite travel memories. Someone might say, I'll never forget my trip to Japan during the cherry blossom season. You could follow up with, that sounds incredible. What was the highlight of that trip for you? This allows them to dive deeper into their story and share the moments that made the trip so special.
Yes, and you can always share your own favorite travel memory to keep the conversation balanced. For example, one of my favorite trips was to Iceland. The landscapes were breathtaking, and I'll never forget seeing the northern lights. By sharing your own experience, you create a more personal and engaging conversation.
Absolutely, and it's a great way to end on a positive note. Travel memories are often filled with excitement and joy, so ending the conversation by reflecting on a favorite moment can leave both of you feeling uplifted.
And if the conversation feels like it's winding down, you can wrap it up by saying something like, it's been great hearing about your travel experiences. You've given me some great ideas for my next trip. It's a friendly way to close the conversation while keeping the mood positive.
Exactly. Ending on a high note with shared travel experiences can create a sense of connection and leave the other person feeling like they've had a meaningful conversation. Well, that wraps up our conversation about small talk and travel. We hope you've picked up some useful tips to keep the conversation flowing smoothly the next time you chat about your travels.
Absolutely. Whether you're sharing your favorite travel memory or swapping budget travel tips, small talk about travel can be a great way to connect with others.
Thanks for listening. Everyone, don't forget to practice these tips in your next conversation. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care and happy travels, whether you're actually going somewhere or just having a fun conversation about it.